So if I could just welcome you all, thank you very much for coming. And just like to give you a couple of details about the conference before we start. We have now reached about 470 registrations as of yesterday. It might have gone up this morning, but that of course doesn't tell you anything about how many people will be in your session. People will dip in, they'll dip out. And a really crucial thing about this conference is that it's both live stream and catch up. So some of you might find that you have a session and your room's full. There's a maximum limit, by the way, of 200 people per virtual room. So if you have an absolute catch-all session and everybody wants to join it, it's a first come, first served basis. However, all is not lost, because one of the important features of an online event like this, and particularly our use of the conference platform Whova, is that everything's recorded and everything is stored, available at one click on Whova for 6 months. So what we have is both a live stream and a catch-up facility. So we have a kind of repository that's available to everybody. So that means that in practical terms for the conference, people might look and say, I want to go to your session, but actually I need to go to this one now. So I'm going to go to that one, and then I'll come and catch up on that other session that was in conflict, a time conflict. So the two of them I couldn't do at once. So that means too, that as a presenter, if you find that you get to your room and there's no participants, please don't worry, because lots of people will want to tune into that session at some other point in time. So you have to see it as kind of recording for posterity, if you like. Just to say too that the program, I think you'll agree, is really good. There's fabulous content here. I think that reflects the support of the evaluation community for the kinds of debates that the EES supports, facilitates. And also, I think, keep in mind too for your presentation, the theme of the conference, complexity, legitimacy, ethics. And while some of you, like Nicoletta, are directly focusing on the theme in their title, many of you don't, and it would be really worth thinking about finessing your presentation, and if you're a chair, Tom, for example, of making sure that you can make those links to keep alive this topic, because this theme has more value now than it did when we started originally organising this conference. In these times of such crises, COVID, environmental, socio and political difficulties, complexities, our theme, I think, has an awful lot of relevance to not just to our times, but through that to the possibility of seeing this conference as an opportunity to move debates forward towards transforming our practice to meet the challenges of these crises. So I'll leave it over to Lauren, and thank you very much for your support and your participation. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, May, and hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lauren Weiss. I am the EES Communications and Admin Manager, and I've been supporting May and the rest of the conference team with this virtual event happening next week. So thank you all for joining. I see we have quite a few of our volunteers who've signed in today, so particularly welcome to all of you. Volunteers, I will ask you to stay on the call a bit longer than the speakers so that we can go through a few more of the elements that I will be showing today. So, as you can all see, we are using BlueJeans. Fortunately, it's quite similar to Zoom. So hopefully it feels rather similar to some of the other online virtual conferencing tools that you've been using over the past year and a half. We've gone with Zoom because it gives us a few different interactive options that will be really stellar for this conference, as we want it to be as participatory as possible. And so today, I just want to make sure that everybody understands what these options are and are relatively comfortable with how to use them. I will note that we are also going to make a sort of standing Zoom room open that all speakers can log into between later today and end of day Monday to also play around with the features and get a bit more comfortable. So that information will be shared with you after this call. There's also a recording of the session we did on Monday, so that if you want to revisit any of the information, you can as well. So before I share my screen to show the particularly interactive features, I want to kind of go over the basics. So first of all, if you are a volunteer and if you are particularly a chair or a moderator, we suggest that you download the BlueJeans app. It is not required if you are just a participant viewing the sessions. For volunteers, this will be necessary, and for speakers who want to use some of the more interactive apps that I will be showing you, you can only access them through the app. We've put information on HOVA in the discussion board about how you can download the app. We'll also follow up by email to make sure that we don't miss you. It's rather simple to do, but it does give you the full accessibility of all of HOVA's features that just streaming it on your web browser does not give you full access. So that's the first point. Then some of the features that are similar to Zoom, if you sort of hover in the bottom left corner, that's how you can change the views. So I have you all right now in gallery view, which is quite lovely. For when we're having discussions, for instance, because you can see the various people, have them sort of feel more like this is an interactive discussion. There's then also speaker view or people view, where it's the main speaker and everyone else smaller. In the top left, you should see a red button flashing. That means that this session is recorded. As May noted, all of the conference sessions will be recorded and then available to conference attendees for up to 6 months. So we are focusing first on making these very interactive in real time, but then also accessible to all conference attendees. Volunteers will be able to help if there's any issues with these, but this is one of the what we call presets that will already be implemented as soon as you join your session. Then if you hover sort of near the top of your screen, you have a camera, a microphone, a screen, and hang up. These should look pretty similar to before. We have it set up that everybody who will join will be on mute and without video so that they will have to turn these on. For the smaller sessions, we invite you to call on participants and allow them to speak and ask questions as you feel comfortable. But the most important one I want to show right now is the share screen. So that's the one with the little screen. Right now, all of you have access to this, that each of you could share your screen if you wanted. I have the admin access, so if people start to do this too much, I can stop it. But we're setting it up this way so that speakers can go and share their screens on their own. They don't need the volunteer who will be serving as the admin to give you access. So this way you can share your own presentation when you are discussing. For instance, if you have a paper that you're showing that you have slides prepared for. This also means you're not required to send the conference team your presentation in advance, since you will be the one presenting your own stuff. I see somebody tried it, so I, as the admin, just overrode it where I stopped the share screen. So that is what I mean. The admin has the final
control. Excuse me, Lauren. Are you showing what you are saying on the screen? Because I'm not seeing this. Are you what you are saying? Are you showing it on the screen?
I'm not currently, but I.
Oh, you're not. Okay, because I just see you. That's why you are going to show it later on. Is it so?
Yeah, I wanted to.
Okay.
discuss and then I can show.
Okay, okay, good.
Yep, no problem.
Sorry.
Thanks for clarifying. On the left, you can see all the people who've joined. At the bottom of that is your raise hand feature. You've also got the chat. Again, this should be pretty similar to what you see on Zoom. And then the apps is where we start to get a little bit more interactive. So I will now, Nicoletta, share my screen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe you all see my screen now, hopefully.
Yeah.
So this was the stop recording. Well, only I have stop recording. This is the recording. This is camera, microphone. You can see I'm sharing my screen. Now here, the people. This is raise hand. If you want to know who's talking, you click on active. That's why it sees me. You also see here I'm sharing my screen. The chat, same as we normally able to do on other platforms. And then here are apps. So these are the ones that you only can access if you download BlueJeans. And these are the ones that allow us to be a bit more interactive. The good news is that if speakers want to use the whiteboard or annotation or upload or share a video, they do not need the volunteer to give them access. You can already share your screen and start the whiteboard. Everyone else can see the whiteboard. You can type on it. Let me demonstrate.
Yes.
Hello. That's quite small, so you can make it bigger. You cannot see my bar on the left-hand side. That gives me the options to draw. It gives me the options to erase if it's a mistake, to delete this. There's also an end. So that is why we're opening the session so that people can practice, so that you can open the whiteboard yourself and see your options. Similarly, we have an option to annotate. So if I had a PowerPoint slide open, I don't, so I'll just show you on this screen. I can also make arrows to important information or underline something I really want my participants to be focused on. And similarly, you cannot see it in share screen, but I have the same options on the left-hand side of being able to type if I want to type, to erase, etc. So these two features are available to you easily. I also have the option to upload or share a video. Meeting highlights is if somebody says something particularly interesting and you want to make sure that we have those 30 seconds flagged, you can click on this. This one is not required. It is a bit more of a marketing tool that we'll work with our volunteers to use, but it is an option if that's something that you would like to try. I've seen Karen has a hand, so Karen.
Yes, thanks, Lorraine. Just from my understanding, you said the app can be downloaded, but it doesn't have to be. But then if a presenter wants to be interactive, of course, he or she then needs to download it. So I'm not quite sure now. Would you then recommend that everybody, so all presenters and all chairs, would download the app? No matter if, sometimes you plan participation in advance and sometimes you things are halfway through the entire session, it might be useful. Could you comment, please? Thank you.
Yes, I mean, our de facto suggestion would be to download the app. If you are a presenter who wants to do it in what I would call a more traditional style, where you want people to see you, you obviously want to turn your mic on, and you want to show your screen so that you can show a PowerPoint you want to do, you do not need to download the app. Those three basic features are available on the web. If you want to do anything that I'll call extra, which is some of these apps that I was showing, you do need to download the app. Does that clarify?
Yeah, but then would it mean that yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll leave my question for later. Thanks. Okay. Yeah.
Sure. I know we have a few on the chat as well. Is it possible to blur or change my background? Yes. So I've shown some of the apps. I will still show the breakout sessions, but we'll come back to that in a second. There's also settings. Now, if you have this downloaded, you can press choose virtual background, and there's all sorts of options. Some of our participants on Monday had issues with this, so I will be following up with BlueJeans to clarify why some people can access that and some cannot. But it does seem to also depend on what operating system you are working on. But yes, BlueJeans has this feature. Yes, and Elena's correct. Volunteers, you definitely need to download the app. Thank you. Okay, any other questions so far? I don't see any hands.
Hi, Lauren. This is Scott. Just a couple questions. Thanks for the very clear presentation. One question, I guess you've already clarified, is some of us are not seeing all the apps like the Breakout and such, and that might be because we need to download it. If we want, I'm a chair for a session, a panel. If other panelists might want to use some of those apps, they need to download it in addition to the chair. So I just want to clarify that. With regards to Dirk's question on the background, I understand we have to download the app to blur the background. And some other conferences I've been, they send out a background that they recommend people use that has, the logo and stuff. So I just wanted to see if the EES is planning that or not. And then I have another question, but maybe I'll let you answer that one first.
Sure. I'll do the background first. I don't believe we have a background that we're requiring. I think we want to allow people from various organizations, and particularly our sponsors, when they participate, to show their own backgrounds, but May?
No, we don't have a standard branding background.
Yep, so
Right.
you're welcome to use your own organizations.
Okay.
Breakout Rooms, I will discuss in a second, because that is the app that's a bit different from everything else. So better I do the full explanation there.
Okay, my last question, it's nice to know that we can, last minute people can get the presentation up when they're presenting because they're directly sharing the screen. But I imagine that the EES does it have a space on the website for people to send their PowerPoint presentations, as a PDF or whatever, just because, as we know, participants often ask for that in the chat and such.
Yeah, great question. There is a really excellent, easy way to do this on Hova, and I will spend about 5 minutes showing Hova after BlueJeans, for those of you who haven't had a chance to explore it yet, but the answer is yes to that one.
Great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions before we look at breakout rooms? Okay, so for the breakout rooms, this one will, oh, sorry, Kirsten, I see you have a hand.
Yes, thank you. I just want to ask a little bit more about the whiteboard feature in the app. I'm planning a pretty interactive session. It's a birds of a feather session. And so I'm actually really interested perhaps in using that. Now, as the presenter or chair, I will download the app, but the participants in the session, will they need to do anything for them to interact on the whiteboard?
Yes, if you want them to also write on the whiteboard, they need to also download the app. We can make this clear on Hova and also in the description of your session. That's no problem.
Okay, so participants should do that in advance.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Lauren, for just a question on that, because I think Kristen's raising something that's, you know, oftentimes participants won't download the app, which is just the nature of these conferences. If Kirsten were to send out a Jamboard link in chat, might that be a way that even if they haven't downloaded the app, they just can cut and paste that in their browser and then add to whatever she's trying to do?
Absolutely. That is a really excellent way to also, we're more than happy for you to use whatever platforms you are most comfortable with and to make that available either through BlueJeans or through your agenda item in your description on Hova. I'll also take the chance to answer Antonina's questions about polling. That is unfortunately a feature we do not have on this version of BlueJeans, and so this is one where we would suggest people who are interested in using polling to use Mentimeter or another app off of BlueJeans that you can show when presenting your own screen. Nicola is planning on using Mural. Yes, absolutely. More than happy for you to use Mural as well. So none of these apps are required. These are all here to help you have as strong of a session as possible. And you are, of course, welcome to instead use apps that you are more familiar with, that you find are more accessible to all the participants, etc. No problem at all. Okay. No polling also for the professional development workshops, correct, Scott? All of these features are the same for professional development workshops. I'm focusing right now on the conference. One of the big differences, the professional development workshops will not be recorded. But otherwise, in terms of what access you have, what features, etc., those are the same. Okay. So let me show the breakout rooms. Even if you download the app, only the admin person, which currently is me, will have access to organizing breakout sessions. Each conference session has a dedicated volunteer who will be in your session the entire time and have the admin access. You will know who he or she is in advance. You will be given the opportunity to get in contact with them if you would like. So for instance, Kirsten, if you know there are certain apps that you definitely want to be using, we would encourage you to get in touch with your volunteer and let them know so that they can also prepare. This is particularly important for breakout sessions because while you can directly use the whiteboard or annotate, etc., you cannot directly set up a breakout session. So you would have to ask your volunteer, can you please make 3 breakout sessions and send everyone into them? You're of course welcome to use these. We are thinking they would be particularly helpful for more of the sort of workshop style conference sessions, such as those focused on theme 2, tools in use. But we do, of course, ask the presenters and chairs to be mindful of the overall timing of your session. So just to demonstrate how breakout sessions would work, I've gone ahead and I've made 3 rooms. They, of course, could be named anything you want. You can add as many rooms as you would like. You can delete rooms. For the conference sessions, Scott, this is different from professional development workshops. We will only have it assign randomly because otherwise, if you have 100 people in your session, it will just take too much of the time for the volunteer to sit there and try to, organize who goes into what session. So I can press assign randomly, and you see that out of us 35, we've got an even split between the 3 rooms. The 2 unassigned are people who are signed in as admins right now, and the admins can easily go into each room. Volunteers, this is something we're going to look at after we let the speakers go. If I were to press start breakout session, we would all go into our own 3 different little rooms. I as an admin can hop in and out, and I as the admin also decide when it's done. So conference speakers and chairs, if you want to use this, you need to let your volunteer know in advance how long you want the session to last. Yes, Karen.
Yeah, thanks, Lorraine. You just explained this very well. What about the chair? Will he or she also be automatically assigned to a breakout room? I suppose so. Just checking. Thanks.
Correct. The chair would be, when we do assign randomly, the chair will be assigned randomly, but you'll see that I, as the admin, can move you. So if I see Karen's in room 1 and she wants to be moved elsewhere, I can do that. So you would have to also, again, tell your volunteer if you want to be in a specific room, or if you want to be moved between, let's say you do this for 20 minutes, you could ask the volunteer to move you every 7 minutes into a different room. So for this one to work, it really is important to have strong communication with your volunteer. And this is particularly one where we invite people to get in touch with their volunteers in advance to let them know that they would want to be using this. For the few of you who are doing professional development workshops, we can set these up in advance. And so that will not be a random assignment, but that's only open to the professional development workshops. I saw a few things come in on the chat. Do we need to, okay, hold on. Do we need to arrange all of this with the volunteer in advance, or can we request to be moved in real time? We would like you to give the volunteer a heads up if you're considering using these. So for instance, I made the 3 rooms in advance while May was discussing because I knew that we would be looking at this feature. So it does save you a few minutes if you can give the volunteer a heads up. But yes, you can also decide to use them in real time. And therefore updating it. Yes, we can be able to upload videos. How do you know who is your volunteer? You don't yet. You will later today or early tomorrow morning. That will be shared on HOVA and by email. Some organizations might have firewalls that prevent you from accessing BlueJeans or fully using BlueJeans. The fact that all of you are connected right now probably means this is not an issue for you. But I will show you on HOVA where we've put information to how you can overcome organizational firewalls in case that's an issue that you'll be facing the day of. How to take place the poster sessions. Okay, this I think will work similarly to a paper presentation where you have about 20 minutes to present because there's more than one poster in a session. May, is that correct?
Yes, there's a poster session with 4 posters in it, and you should allow 15 or 20 minutes max for your presentation. Normally poster sessions include a bit of interactivity in the presentation anyway. So you can look at who else is presenting a poster with you and liaise with them. You will have that information up shortly. So either work among the 4 of you or just see it as approximately 20 minutes max for your presentation and the poster.
And one more thing I want to mention on the breakout rooms is the same way this overall session is being recorded, each breakout room is recorded as well. What we learned that is not recorded is if you have each session work on a whiteboard, for instance, that information is not necessarily captured. So if you have them working on stuff that you want to keep the material, either try to ask someone to take notes, or that would be a good opportunity to use Mural, Google Docs, or something else outside of BlueJeans. I can send everybody into the breakout rooms. We'll do it for just a minute, just so that you can see what this looks like, and then we'll come back. Does anyone have any questions before we do that? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and start the breakout sessions for 1 minute. I may. So you should be able to jump in if you want. We have 2 people not assigned. I will put Bernadette in room 1, Miguel in room 2. Okay. I know that's not a full minute, but perhaps I'll end it anyway. And welcome back. All right, looks like we're all back relatively seamlessly. Any other questions about breakout rooms? You can either raise your hand or put it in the chat or no. Okay, great. A few other just basic points to go over in BlueJeans before I show you Hova. So I wanted to just clarify that unlike Zoom, important feature here is you cannot change who is the admin. That's why we have assigned each of you a volunteer to support with the admin. So they can help with muting or unmuting or turning videos on or off. They will run the breakout sessions for you. If there's any other minor issues that come up, they can also support in real time. We have a few different levels of support for this. So your first level of support are your volunteers. If you're not speaking, I can ask you to mute just to get rid of the echo. Great. If the volunteer is unable to answer you in real time, I will also be online for the full conference as a backup tech person that the volunteer can get in touch with. And then last but not least, there's also going to be someone from BlueJeans available at all times. Exactly how within the app you get in touch with both me and the BlueJeans person, I will communicate at a later stage, hopefully later today, because we're still resolving that. There's also an important feature. You can see the little question mark here with help, and that takes you to sort of the frequently asked questions, particularly if your sound isn't working or your video's not working. Kind of those main questions that are often asked can be easily answered here. So between the written and person support, we should be able to get this moving without too many hiccups. Okay, I want to just double check my notes very quickly before we move on. Yes, we've also set this up so that in addition to each session being pre-recorded, there is no waiting room, which means you don't have to wait on your volunteer to let everyone in. So you might join a session and there's already a few participants there or not. Everybody will join, they will be muted and without their video on. Otherwise, it can be disruptive with the little chime every time somebody logs in if you're already presenting. The other final point to share on Hova is that when you are the one sharing your screen, most likely showing your own PowerPoint presentation during your session, you cannot also see the chat. So if you need someone monitoring the chat, we suggest that you get in touch with the chair of your session. You can also ask your volunteer to support this in real time. Of course, as soon as you stop sharing your screen with the PowerPoint, you can indeed see the chat and answer any questions that come up there. Okay, Any other questions on BlueJeans at this point? Again, we will direct you to the full recording of the onboarding session and how you can access it between later today and Monday to sort of play around, test out the whiteboard, test out annotation, etc. But any other burning questions at this time?
Yes, I don't know if you see my hand raised, Lorraine.
I only went back to look. Sorry. Yes, please, Karin.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I know, because there are still 32 people. Yeah, thanks for this, Lauren. Just one clarification on the issue of sharing the screen. If I understood it correctly, sort of each participant and speaker can do this him or herself. But in case that, for any unknown reason, does not work, what would you suggest as a next step? Because if the PowerPoint is not shared in advance, which doesn't need to be, but what would you recommend if the uploading doesn't work? Should it be sent via email to the volunteer and he or she puts it on? Any quick response to that, if possible?
Yes, and that's a nice segue into my discussion on hope.
Okay.
Actually,
Sorry.
Before I answer that, any other questions on BlueJeans? Because otherwise I will use that to move us into the next part.
This question might be rhetorical, but if there's any participants have technical problems, I imagine that the volunteer would take care of that, so the actual chair and panelists in the session are focused on what they're presenting. So if that comes up in chat, will there be, at the beginning of each session, will there be somebody from EES kind of welcoming people and laying that stuff out? Or should the chair say, if you have any technical problems, put it in chat and the volunteer will connect with you?
Yeah. The sessions that are chaired are the paper sessions only. The other sessions are chaired by the person who, like yourself, Scott, in your session, the overall chair. And so you really have to direct people at the start of the session to how they can use those different facilities or the volunteer or whatever. We don't have enough EES people to run across all of the conference, all of the startup sessions. I will also add, though, that it is tight. We have only 5 minutes, occasionally 10 minutes between sessions. That should be all right, because people don't have to physically move. They only have to move virtual rooms. But people may come in late. People may try and start up and have a couple of problems. And we expect that our volunteers can handle that on site, whenever things happen. But it is, there are contingencies here, and we can't cover every base.
I should also just add to that, Scott, we'll be running up to 6 virtual rooms at the same time. So it really is a very big level of content happening. Our conference team and likely the rest of our board will be floating in and out. And of course, I'm always on the back end if there's a major technical issue. But yes, in the chat, for instance, Dee had issues at the beginning with audio, and I handled that with them over chat while everybody else was connecting, and that's exactly how we would expect our volunteers to do it. Yes. Great.
So just in summary then, the person chairing the session should not only introduce the session, but any technical housekeeping points. And on that note, if EES prepares any bullets on that, share them out, or if somebody like myself starts preparing them, I can send them to you and maybe use that as a springboard to share those, because I imagine they're going to be the same across all sessions. And as May already said, these are tight sessions, so we don't need to give a dissertation, but just some quick notes, like if you have a problem, we have a volunteer that would be able to assist, blah, blah, blah.
Yep, exactly. We've got a document prepared that will be going to all chairs, but also speakers, because it's helpful for them, recapping a lot of the points we discussed today, but also exactly points like that, Scott. If you have any thoughts, we'd be more than happy for you to share them so that we can incorporate. That would be lovely. Thank you. Is it possible to have access on the chat and documents or links if you watch the video after the real session? Okay, similar question to Karen's, which is essentially how can we make the most out of this, and how does HOVA help? So far, Karen, we've had no issues with people being able to present their screens because this one is not connected to the app. So as long as like Skype, like Zoom, like any other virtual platform, as long as your internet connection is stable, it should not be an issue. That said, one way that we can overcome this is presenters are more than welcome to share materials like their PowerPoints on HOVA. So I will share my screen again. For those of you who have not had a chance to access HOVA before, welcome. If you've not been invited to HOVA, that most likely is because we have not received your payment yet. We're updating it every day, multiple times. Thank you for muting.
Non posso, chiudo dopo.
No, we got that done. Okay. So please make sure that your payment has been sent, and at that point it will be added to HOVA, which is our conference platform. Many of you have seen the agenda already.
Sto parlando, Marta, aspettami. Scusami, sto facendo questa cosa, ti chiamo appena posso.
As I said, the admin has the ability to mute people as needed. So the agenda, many of you should be familiar with already. We will be doing a finalization of it later today. But you also are able to search everybody who is attending. You can search by the type of person they are. So if they're a speaker or if they're a participant, all of the volunteers have already been registered on HOVA. So you can also get in touch with them this way, in addition to their emails that you will be sent later on. On the community, we have discussion boards. We also have icebreakers that people are starting to use. A very interesting feature is these virtual meetups. So if you want to propose a topic to discuss further, for instance, if you find that there were a lot of questions in your session that you weren't able to answer, you can propose a virtual meetup. This is hosted directly on HOVA, so it does not fight for time with BlueJeans, and anybody can set this up. So this doesn't have to be a volunteer or a board member or a conference organizer. It's quite easy. You pick to do a virtual meetup, you pick your title, you describe what it is, you'll say do it on HOVA's virtual meeting room. Again, we'll send instructions on this as well by email and leave it posted on HOVA. You pick how long and you pick when and where. Some of the other info that I mentioned that's on HOVA is in the discussion board. And so you can see we've got a link to where you can find info on all of our volunteers. Here's the info on BlueJeans that shows you how to download the app and then use it, for instance, etc. Now, when we update our agenda later today, there will be a speaker session where each speaker will have their own profile, and you will also be able to directly upload information here. So if you want to upload more documents, if you want to upload your presentation, for instance, you're welcome to do so here, and anybody who is attending the conference can then access the material. So this is a good backup that if they're not able to share the screen, the volunteer could go to their speaker center, type in their name and find them, find the PowerPoint, and then share the screen for them. So if you're happy to have your information shared with the full conference, we would invite you to do that so here. Similarly to actually access the sessions, that will be done in the agenda. So for instance, If you were either speaking here or attending here, you would click on this session. You have, the speaker, the theme, what type, the title, when and where. You can also make your own personal agenda, hence add to my agenda, but I will let you look at that more when you play around on Hova on your own time. But at the bottom here, there will either be a link to join it live, and that will be the same link that participants and speakers use. Volunteers, that will be different. We'll discuss that at the end of the session after we let the speakers go. After the session is done, the recording will be made available instead of the live link. And so that's how you're able to access all the different content throughout the conference. I'll pause here for questions on Hova. I'm going to stop sharing those so I can see. Hey, Shamil, I will double check to make sure that we have received your payment and then move you to Hova or let you know if there's an issue. Karin, I see you have a hand.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction on Hoover now. Maybe I didn't see it properly, but if I click or if the idea of using meetups and virtual meets, you only want to organize this for the participants or for the speakers of this particular group. Or is this just you set up a meeting and whoever knows about it and sees that sort of then enters that room? Because otherwise there would be some admin involved. But maybe I'm confused now. Thanks.
Let me do this again.
Yeah, please.
So you could do it about your favorite type of food if you wanted. We would, ask you not to do that, keep it related to the conference, and those with admin this in the background could get rid of it if it gets off topic. But for instance, we can do an onboarding practice. I do it on Hova. I do it for 60 minutes today, starting at 11 in Europe. So it shows up here. So if people go to community, meetups, and virtual events, you can see that it's here already, but also directly in the agenda, upcoming meetups in the community. So you get a notification of it as well if you're directly checking the agenda or if you're directly checking the community. Last but not least, I and the volunteers who will be helping me on Hova will also be sending reminders to everyone through Hova. You'll get this either as an app notification if you download this app or as an email. And similarly, we can flag if there's virtual meetups happening that day that are already scheduled. So through a few different channels, you'll be notified of these if they're occurring. And again, they're for anyone to set up. You can see on the discussion board, we've had some people already post topics that they are interested in discussing. The same way that they've posted on the discussion board, they could also offer to create a virtual meetup to discuss. Our speaker information linked to the info after the presentation. How can we check an update session and panel information? That will be ready later today. Essentially, the idea is once you are in the agenda, you've clicked on a session that you find very interesting, you want to learn more about Elliot Stern, you can click his profile, you can send a message, but yes, it would be linked to him on the speaker view, unless you're one of the people who do not want to be shown, and Elliot, I think you actually are. So we will be able to also hide certain profiles if you have requested that.
Could I just make a point here, Lauren, which is that I think it's important for everybody to understand, because I think there's been quite a lot of frustration about the state of play of your presentation on Hova. And a lot of you feeling that it's out of date, it hasn't represented properly what your session is doing or the people involved, etc. This fundamentally relates to the fact that we program the conference on the Conference Tool Pro program, and this has to be largely manually transported into Hoover. So we obviously don't do that every day. We do it when we have a chance to kind of pull together a large number of changes in the conference program. And obviously we've been looking to do it this week, but there have been some shifts and movements over the last couple of days. So we really want to be able to put up the final version of Hoover as a final version and not have to tinker with it again, because there's quite a lot of manual work. And I'm sure, as you also appreciate, because we didn't have a conference organising company to help us, they withdrew from the organisation functions for EES on this. We have been doing this entirely on our own. And of course, thanks very much to our volunteers, as well as our able Lauren here and the rest of us on the team. So we do ask for your understanding and patience on this front. Thank you.
Okay. For our speakers, those were the main points we wanted to go over today. I'll invite last questions, but also to volunteers. If you've got a few more minutes, we'd like to show you a few more features as well for the admin side. Karin, is that a residual hand or another question?
It's a follow-up question of your earlier points on Hoover, if I may.
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've understood it correctly. Once people sort of use the Meetup and virtual meet sort of a feature, then all participants receive a notification email.
No.
Oh, and if okay, not everybody. And I mean, could there be a risk that we sort of get an email, to exaggerate now, every 5 minutes, and it sort of kills us?
Right. Let me rephrase.
Yeah,
no,
please.
You do not automatically get an email when one of these is set up.
Yeah,
there are
great.
It will automatically be on your agenda. It will automatically be on the community board. Both of those require you to actively go check. I, with the volunteers, will likely send sort of a daily recap at the beginning, where we can flag, good morning, welcome to day 2. Here are the, make sure to check out the virtual meetups that are already scheduled for today. So the idea is to make the information as easily accessible without overwhelming you.
I think if you anticipate that you would want follow-up discussion after your session, I think, Scott, we've kind of touched on this in our communications by email, then it's a good idea to set up your virtual meet before and have it ready so that you can give your presentation, your panel, whatever, and rather than just cut short your meeting and say, oh, well, I'll set up a virtual meet now. Go to your community board, you'll see there, virtual meet for session on the good Anthropocene or ethics and evaluation or whatever. Click on that and let's meet in 5 minutes in the virtual room and carry on the conversation. So it should be pretty dynamically kind of interactive and usable. So hopefully that's going to improve the interactivity.
And to clarify.
Thanks, May. And just to save you time, because I know you guys are extremely busy, you don't have to reply to my email, most recent email on that, because you've just clarified that during this session. I'm going to be having a meeting with my panelists tomorrow, and we'll determine if we collectively want to have a virtual meeting, at what time to set it, and I'll go ahead and do that myself. And that way, EES doesn't need to worry about it. And of course, if I have any problems, I'll connect with my volunteer.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. And let me just clarify one more time. The main conference, of course, is the content that is scheduled in the agenda on BlueJeans. HOVA is a way to stay on top of all the developments of what's going on and to bring in some of that interaction, connectivity that you would have in an in-person conference. Of course, it's never the same virtually, but we have these different features available to you to the level that you want to use them. So the idea of the virtual rooms is if you walked out with a few people from a very interesting session, you would most likely go get a coffee all together and continue discussing it. So we want you to have opportunities for those kinds of more informal exchanges as well, where it's not recorded, it's not part of the formal conference, it's sort of recreating those kinds of discussions you would get in person. So that's the purpose of these virtual meetups. They are there if you want to use them. They are, of course, not required. They are similarly not recorded to sort of have that, you know, informal feel. But again, you can also write on the discussion board. You can post and respond to other people's icebreakers. It really is as much as you individually would like to use these features. So I will stop there. Any other final comments or questions from our speakers at this point? Volunteers, I'll ask you to hold. I'm just checking there are no hands. Karen? Yes, okay.
Elliot and Karen?
Yes, sorry. May? Did you have a question? Okay, so maybe just to come back to the issue that you said there are always 5 or 10 minutes between the different sessions and there won't be a waiting room. So it could happen that, I mean, ideally when you meet, you know, in a session you meet like 5 or 10 minutes earlier, but that could mean that you run into the previous session. Is that correct? And you may not notice immediately that you are in the sort of wrong session or the earlier session. I mean, you will figure it out within a second or two, of course, but could that happen from a technical point of view?
We're about to send out our guidance to chairs, which will go to all presenters. I think it's got, we try to work through some of the likely issues. That is one of them. And really the only thing we can do here is we have to be strict on timing. There is enough time for people to come out of one virtual room and get to the next virtual room they want to, because there's only a couple of clicks involved. 5 minutes, and in a few cases 10 minutes is adequate time. What is required is that chairs take the job of timekeeping really seriously. And that is something that we have flagged strongly in the advice and guidance that we're about to distribute to you. And there's otherwise no way around it. If people are late to the session, they're late to the session. If nobody's present at the session and you've got 3 presentations, you know, full on for the hour and a half in a paper session, or you've got 6 panelists, you want to start. They can catch up later. They can go back to the recording again at a click of a button and see what they missed. So timing's all here.
Let me just add to that. If any of you have been in a Zoom session where the same admin had another meeting coming up afterwards, you'll notice you get kicked out if you try to go too long. So that will happen as here as well. So let's say room 2 has a session at 10 a.m. and at 11 a.m. This is, of course, an example. That's not the timing of our session. The 10 a.m. one will have to stop because the 11 a.m. one will start. So if you don't have an organized chair who starts and ends on time, they will get kicked off so that the next session can still start on time. Elliot, I think you have a hand. Elliot, we can't hear you though.
Mute?
Yeah, Elliot.
Unmute.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay. I wasn't sure if I was in control of my mute or not. I've had a lot of difficulties getting people together for the panel, and like Scott, having a first meeting tomorrow. Only just managed to get all the brief bio information together. Hopefully, if that's sent to you later today, that's still time for it to be uploaded, because as May noted, we were one of the groups that were concerned that we didn't have all the bios on screen. But it's not too late to do that, I take it, if we do it today.
Not a problem, Elliot. And in any case, home is not fixed. I just
Okay, I got the impression it was today was the cutoff. Sorry about that.
It's just that we're making sure that we get it as up to date as we've got a program up on Wova now.
Okay.
But fiddling can be done, and we can add stuff anytime. Not a problem.
Yeah, Elliot, please
So,
on that. I'll help to get it up quickly.
so just on that note, once EES on your end gets it up, because you guys are graciously doing this, and I understand there's a backlog of stuff, and if we find that there's an inaccuracy, nevertheless, after you get it up, can we take the heat off of you as chairs and edit the HOVA entry ourselves, or do we need to get in touch with you again and bug you to do it?
So Scott, once we set it up fully, ideally later today, and have you linked correctly to your sessions, that should indeed allow you to be able to make final changes on HOVA as needed, yes.
Great, great. Yeah, just send that along when you communicate with chairs, how to do that, really brief. So I'm just thinking of ways of taking the last minute tasks off of EES plates and giving it directly to us.
Great. Okay, speakers, any other final comments? Great. Well, thank you all very much for your time. This was very helpful to hear the types of questions you have in advance so that we can make sure to regurgitate or reiterate, I guess is the better word, by email the main points from today. Volunteers, if you have a few more minutes, I'm going to ask you all to kindly stay so that we can go over a few more features on the admin side. But speakers, thanks again. Please let us know if you have any questions in the meantime, and you should be receiving more information from us later today.